Okay, part two, rush to judgment. So now I want to start talking about actual incidences, give you some pointers as to, or point by point facts about the case, how it laid out, how it came to be, how people learned of it, and then follow up each incident with a series of examples of how the media, the culture, others rushed to a certain judgment about it, only to be proven wrong later on. And the godmother or grandmother or the ancestor, perhaps, of a lot of today's fake news goes all the way back to 1987. Now, have there been other instances where media got it wrong? Yeah. Did they do it on purpose? Yeah. Were they being overly sensational? Of course. We talked about that when we were having the video talking about yellow journalism. It goes all the way back to the 19th century. But we're talking about a current crop of fake news, hate crime hoaxes, and the rest that have been much more virulent, much more intense, much more finger pointy at certain groups over other groups. And this trend may well have started with the Tawana Brawley case in 1987. So Tawana Brawley was a young black woman who accused 4 white men of abducting her and sodomizing and raping her. She was actually only 15-year-old, I say young woman. She was a girl. She lived in Wappingers Falls, New York. 15 years old. What she did was she was basically found semi-conscious inside of a trash bag, and she had racial slurs written on her, and she was covered in what appeared to be feces. Not a pretty picture. Evidence had shown later that Brawley had had trouble with her parents, that she was visiting a boyfriend in jail that day. A boyfriend in jail. You start to see where this is maybe going. Then went to a party. All the while she was supposedly missing for four whole days. Turns out she was at doing all these other things. And, a runaway from these parents she had a problem with. There was, an autopsy. Not an autopsy, she was alive. There was an investigation about her being, her person. They found 0 forensic evidence of any rape. Al Sharpton, who rushed to her side, who at the time he was just a much younger reverend, who jumped on this Tawana Brawley bandwagon to expose to the world the hate that still exists out there against black people. Sharpton and the lawyers' witnesses that they were going to bring in to prove this thing happened, all bailed out on them mysteriously before they ever testified. One witness saw Brawley actually crawl into the trash bag herself. In 1988, 180 witnesses over 7 months testified in court about this case as Al Sharpton and the lawyers tried to accuse these men of this heinous crime. 7 months. They told a grand jury the story, and it was considered a hoax. But Brawley herself refused to participate in the whole thing. Not that she wasn't saying it was true. She made public statements to the media in front of microphones and cameras, and she continued to, even to this day, by the way, say that it happened. Never admitted any guilt or wrongdoing. But she didn't actually testify. She was eventually sued by one of the four men, a man named Steve Pagonis, for defamation. He sued her for $434,000. She didn't pay a dime for decades, by the way. She was finally sued for garnishment of wages in 2013. Pagonis had to go back to court to say, where the hell's my money? So the court demanded $627 a month be garnished from Tawana Brawley's wages. By the way, she changed her name to some Islamic name and left the town and moved on and tried to hide in the shadows for a long time. So for 25 years, she didn't pay a dime until this court found her and demanded the money of her. Finally started paying that garnishment, by the way. It will take the rest of her life. And in fact, now that she's somewhere around the age of 40, I don't think she'll be able to pay $434,000 at $627 a month in her lifetime. So Pagonis is hosed, of course, and his reputation and all the things he went through. He lost his reputation. He lost his marriage. He lost his job as a professor, all because of this lie. Where does he go to get his good name back, ladies and gentlemen? The attorneys that Al Sharpton brought in, Vernon Mason and Alton Maddox, also were sued and have already paid. Good on them, monetarily anyway. Al Sharpton was not sued. He paid nothing. Both the lawyers were disbarred, and Al Sharpton got away scot-free. Al Sharpton basically made his name on this case. He was not known, or not known well, outside of Harlem or the black community until the Tawana Brawley case. He got his chops in the race industry, you might say, on this case. He backed this woman to the hilt and even backed her after the facts came in that she was guilty of perpetrating the hoax herself. And he still used this hoax to try to prove racism existed on the right in America. And he used this as a springboard, a launching pad for a career that has basically been doing nothing but the same thing. Backing every national, headline-making, sensational case regarding racism and the like that he could wedge his fat body into. Of course, later he lost a lot of weight, so we can't say that. Good for him. But Al Sharpton has been a race whore for nigh on 30 years now. Congratulations. That rush to judgment has made somebody famous. Is that how people are supposed to get famous? I don't know. That just seems wrong to me. The next case I want to talk about is the Duke Lacrosse case. Everyone remembers that one probably. This occurred in March of 2006 during the Bush presidency, Bush 1943. Some boys, apparently on the Duke lacrosse team, had hired 2 exotic dancers for a frat party. One of those exotic dancers was a woman by the name of Crystal Gail Magnum, who then later accused 3 team members on the Duke lacrosse team of gang raping her in the bathroom of a nearby apartment, or rundown rental home, actually, near the east campus of Duke University. The 3 men that were accused were Colin Finnery, Reed Selig, and the captain of the lacrosse team, Dave Evans. Finnery, Seligman, and Evans. The Durham County District Attorney, a toad by the name of Mike Nifong, right out of the gate, made frequent damning interviews with the press, on the news, and in magazines, about how cocksure he was that the 3 of them were guilty, without having interviewed any of the suspects or interviewing the accuser. He just took the whole thing on face value, went right to the cameras and the microphones, and said they're guilty. The district attorney. Presumption of innocence? No. Fifth Amendment rights? Unheard of. The media were unconvinced about the players maintaining their innocence. They did not speak out right away. They actually remained silent, which, of course, drove the media mad and drove a lot of the idiots in the media to believe that they were guilty because, after all, the innocent shout to the rooftops. But turns out their lawyers told them to shut the hell up, and they actually listened to their lawyers. It had nothing to do with wanting to or not wanting to shout their innocence to the rooftops. They did want to. When they finally were allowed to, the media were unconvinced. How convenient for them to be unconvinced. New York Times editor at the time admitted later that his journalists were very excited to find all of their pet social justice issues all in one story. White over black, rich over poor, male over female, educated over uneducated. It was, as he said, too juicy to pass up. Admitted it. The team members were accused by Nifong and the media and even the police of obstructing justice just because they immediately lawyered up and remained silent pending the investigation, as we said. Now, doing what your lawyer tells you is obstructing justice. Since when did that begin? Even the professors at Duke University and the leadership at Duke University prejudged these players, and they have never apologized. The media retractions are few and offered grudging info as it became available regarding the dismissal of all charges, which eventually occurred. The only person to stick by them was their coach, the guy who maybe knew him best, and he was excoriated and fired. The rush to judgment. Mr. Nifong. Of course, Mr. Nifong lost his job as a result of all this because he went out on that limb and decided, oh yeah, they're guilty, and couldn't wait to become famous, apparently, as he grabbed every headline and microphone and got in front of every camera he could, only to found out that he was just a complete horse's ass and wasn't worthy of the office he held. The Duke professors, even after the proof of innocence came out, were all over these guys, especially a professor by the name of Houston A. Baker Jr. He and 87 other professors signed a letter about how they felt about this occasion, these Duke players and their coach. And they also refused to apologize for messing with the players and their lives and all that. There was no due process. There was no presumption of innocence in this case. People from all walks of life on the left came out bitching about how these silver spoon-fed rich white boys and how they racist they were, and how they treated this poor black woman who was just a victim from the word go. Media folks like Nancy Grace from HLN News, outspoken about these kids on the team. Susan Estrich, a professor at USC, was outspoken until when the facts came out. At least to her credit, she took everything back. She apologized and said she was wrong. But of course, she'd rushed to judgment first. And I do believe, again, that that was the last time she ever did. To her credit. At the time, a semi-quasi-famous feminist blogger by the name of Amanda Marcotte went ape crap all over these Duke lacrosse players in her blogs that's at the time at least were followed by lots of people, as she spit all over the rich guys against the poor girl and the white guy against the black girl and this whole thing. In the USA Today, the Herald Sun, Rolling Stone, New York Times all jumped on the bandwagon, deciding that these guys were guilty before proven innocent. Paula Zahn at CNN did the same thing. John Feinstein, a sports writer, and Dr. Julianne Malveaux, who was outspoken during when Clinton was getting his butt in a ringer with regard to Monica Lewinsky. All these people, and many, many more, had a nice crow dinner when it turned out that Crystal Gayle Magnum made the whole thing up. Oops. Part 3, we'll talk about some more instances of fake news and rushing to judgment. See you on that one.